Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome. The Doctor is in, and we are returning to Rokonjima in Umineko no Naku Koroni, also known as Umineko When They Cry, here in the States. Thank you so much for honking, Wild Talon. Appreciate you being here. How's your day been? And that tells me that the sound alerts are working, so that gets the testing out of the way for me. Thank you so much for that. So with that being said, we can get right into it. Okay, let me hydrate just a little bit. And hey, Chabin, thank you for joining. How's it going? Alright, let's see here. I do hope this is the correct save. Oh no. That ain't good. Okay, well, that's, for some reason, I had failed to save my game last time. So that's fun. Give me just a second. I think I can skip ahead. Let's see, if I go to config, it should give me the play controls and tell me how I can skip past text. Either that, or I'm loath to do this, but let's see. Alright, here's what I'm going to do. Go back to the title. Going to lurk, though? Okay. Alright, thanks for lurking. And howdy, Ed Fantasy there. Hi, Mickey. How's it going? Alright. So, what I'm going to do, even though I really don't want to do this, is I'm going to go ahead and unlock Episode 2. That will enable me to do a chapter skip. While I'm doing that chapter skip, I'm going to Okay, I'm back. Sorry about all that. That'll teach me not to save my game. Good grief. The Yoshiromiya Family Conference was held once every year in the first weekend of October. If a normal family were to hold a so-called family conference, you'd expect it to be nothing more than a reunion of rarely seen relatives who greet each other around buckets of sushi or something. However, part of the family's great fortune had been lent out to grandfather's children, and no one in this family was considered an adult until they had met with success in business. So this meeting literally was a conference. How much of the fortune was invested, what sort of business was conducted, how much profit was earned. As a result, how much of the fortune borrowed from the main family could be repaid. Or possibly how much more would be borrowed for future business ventures. What lessons had they learned, and what could they learn from their mistakes? Seems like topics like these were discussed very seriously in the past. My dad said it was like lying on a bed of nails. Apparently it used to be a very serious family meeting where people were bathed in scornful and angry voices, and some people even got slapped despite their age. However, that had become a thing of the past. Now, with everyone pursuing their own business ventures and achieving success, it was becoming more of a normal yearly get-together. Even so, telling grandfather about recent events was extremely stressful. So, while it was nothing more than a simple get-together for us grandchildren, it was still a real stomachache for our parents. The absence of the man who was the source of all this trouble, regardless of the reason, probably made today's lunch taste much more delicious. The phrase, "while the demon is not around, everyone can relax," comes to mind. Must be a Japanese saying. Anyway, let's introduce Jessica's father, whose face I haven't seen for 6 years. The man sitting next to my father's left is his older brother and Jessica's father, Uncle... you can read that, right? It says Kraus. Sure is easy to read, this name. Kraus. Now that we've gotten used to this string of weird names, our perspective is totally skewed. So Kraus doesn't actually seem that bad. Even starts to sound kind of cool. Just like with Aunt Nazi, I didn't really have many memories of speaking with Uncle Kraus. He'd never been one to chat to children, and I felt like he was always talking with the adults, just like Aunt Natsuhi. One second. Okay. According to my father's gossip, he was a spiteful and violent man. If what he said is true, Uncle Kraus used to be very domineering from his position as the oldest sibling. Hold on, gotta adjust my seat a bit. There we go, much better. And was despised by all the other siblings. Though despite that, those siblings all seem to be chatting happily together. Oh well. Even if their relationship was bad when they were children, sometimes when people grow up and live apart from each other, their relationships change. That's probably what this was. After all, they had children of about the same age. By sharing the same family environment, to be specific, they probably profited by exchanging opinions. Maybe because of that, a short while ago, the circle of parents began to discuss the exams Jessica and I would be taking. Jessica, in order to escape questions about exams from my father on her left, purposefully faced right while firing off a rapid series of comments, not giving me any chance to get a word in. Moving on, let's look at the end opposite from Kraus and the others. In the very last seat at the table, an old gentleman with a sturdy physique sat facing Kyrie-san. This was my first time meeting him. I had only just been introduced to him, but it seems he's grandfather's personal doctor, a man called Nanjo. I heard he used to own a huge clinic on the nearby island of Nijima, but he turned it over to his son and began living a life of leisure in his old age. He'd known grandfather since the very beginning, when the mansion was first constructed on this island, and had built up a relationship over several decades. I thought at first that the two of them might have gotten to know each other through grandfather's suspicious hobbies, but it seems he was actually grandfather's chess partner. I see. That kind of hobby seems very like our grandfather. What was his love of all things Western? Not just probably the only person who could enter Rokonjima despite being neither a family member nor a servant. He looked like a calm old gentleman as he listened to the discussion between Kyrie and the other women, who sat near to him. Considering how long he stayed by the side of our short-tempered grandfather, his generous heart was probably nothing to laugh at. Still, even if he was a family doctor, having anyone outside the Ushiromiya family attend the family conference was a little odd. Made me think that grandfather's condition might have worsened so much it'd be a major topic of discussion at today's conference. After all, George said something like that just a second ago. Something about how we've been getting continuous reports since around last year that grandfather didn't have long to live. It's nasty to think about it, but consider how rich grandfather is. At the time of his death, his wealth will suddenly be released, probably along with a fair share of our parents' stomach acid. And it'll lead to ulcers for everyone. After all, this sort of thing just gets messier when there's more wealth to be divided. There's a good chance we'll be talking about stuff like that at the family conference. Still, it's not like it's got anything to do with us kids. Finally, even though he hasn't shown up, let me introduce our grandfather. The person who should be sitting in that quote-unquote incipient's chair is Ushiromiya Kinzo. Thank you, Avsor, for joining. How's it going? What a nice family setting. Such a wholesome tale. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, it really sucks. Everyone else in the family has these weird names, but he's got this perfectly normal one himself. If only his name were written Kinzo, but he let us call him Goldsmith or something. I'd totally freak out. As you can probably guess by now, he's a frightening person with an extremely short temper. I'm one of his grandchildren, not his son, and I haven't seen him since elementary school. Thanks to that, I have no memory of being beaten myself, but our parents were apparently raised with an iron fist. That earlier conversation between my dad and Uncle Krause about who should go convince grandfather to come down seems pretty darn funny once you know their background. You can't really tell grandfather's story without covering that pivotal event back before the Showa era that was between 1926 and 1989. Until the Meiji and Taisho eras, that's from 1868 to 1912 and 1912 to 1926 respectively, the Ushiromiya family was great and prosperous. They owned several spinning mills, making them rich enough to just double over laughing every day as the money kept rolling in. Incidentally, grandfather was a member of a branch family and had pretty much nothing to do with the main family. Not only was he way down on the list of people who could inherit the headship, but he hardly had any contact with the glamorous main family. However, during the Great Kanto earthquake in Taisho 12, or 1923, the mansion owned by the Ushiromiya family in Odawara was flattened. The spinning mills in Tokyo were all burned down in a huge fire, and the Ushiromiya family lost more of its wealth and family members in an instant. So, once they started trying to figure out who the successor to the Ushiromiya family should be, they apparently found no one remaining except Kinzo and his branch family. In Kinzo's later reminiscences, the Witch of the Island has got my tongue tied. In Kinzo's later reminiscences, he referred to this as good fortune so great that it overturned fate. With that, the grandfather's boring, everyday life did a 180. He was entrusted with reviving the dying Ushiromiya family, which had lost nearly all of its wealth. However, just because he'd been entrusted with this task didn't mean he could accomplish it. Apparently, those around him weren't really expecting much. However, this is when grandfather began displaying his extraordinary talent and good luck. Grandfather used all the family's remaining wealth, as well as everything from the hair on his head to his toenails, as collateral in order to borrow a massive amount of money. Once he'd built up a gigantic war chest, he immediately invested in businesses. It was like someone tumbling down a hill on a bike without any brakes, and then jumping onto a neighboring bike, and then another one. Just like some crazy street performance. I'll bet everyone thought grandfather had no business ability whatsoever. However, after several miracles and turns of good luck with coincidence piling up and every chance taken advantage of, he was suddenly in control with powerful connections with the occupying forces. At that time, MacArthur and the GHQ were the ultimate authority in Japan. Grandfather, in a twinkle of an eye, began succeeding in business under the protection of the occupying forces, quickly becoming very rich. By this point, it's probably safe to say that information, not luck, saved the day. He must have made some seriously deep connections with the occupying forces. Grandfather knew beforehand about emergency demands that would be made for the Korean War. No, it was more than that. He must have predicted those emergency demands from the very beginning when he started investing his money. The history books make it sound like all of Japan made a large profit off the emergency demands during the Korean War, but that isn't actually true. Only a very limited number of the super rich played the money game and made an easy profit. Most of the citizens remained poor. In other words, Grandfather was a member of this extremely lucky group of winners. Pretty sure that all this happened during 1950, that's Showa 25 or so. The Great Kanto earthquake happened in Taisho 13, 1924, so that means Grandfather was able to revive the near-dead Ushiromiya family in only about 20 years to a level even higher than it had ever been before. With that, you'd think he'd revive the main family in Odawara, but for some reason he went and did something as crazy as buying an entire small island in the Izu Archipelago. Buying an entire island is not something that you can ordinarily do today. However, Grandfather was clever. He contacted the GHQ and applied for the establishment of a marine resource base. He acquired this island as a business property, then tossed that project aside and claimed it as his own plot of land. After the war, there were prevention measures against food shortages, and having the sponsorship of the GHQ meant that nobody could oppose him. From what I've heard, the Tokyo metropolis of that day offered this land to him practically for free. Later, Tokyo made difficulties by telling Kinzo to return the land, but the pushy GHQ intervened. Anyway, it seems under-the-table bribes did their work well. In the end, the city gave up in frustration. Grandfather, with considerable skill and good luck, managed to weather the stormy seas of that period, obtaining a vast fortune and his own island. Of course, it probably wasn't all luck. He was obsessed with all things Western, which helped him cultivate his English skills. He was able to use this to his advantage and sink his teeth into the GHQ. A mansion was built on the island soon after. This mansion, in fact. Grandfather, with his love of the Western style, made this once uninhabited island a canvas upon which he could realize his dreams to his heart's content. He now had the Western mansion of his dreams, overflowing with emotion and atmosphere, and a beautiful garden featuring all sorts of roses. And he had a private beach where nobody other than himself would ever be permitted to leave a footprint. This would be a dream come true for any boy. After that, he made good use of his huge fortune, becoming a large stockholder in the extremely stable iron and steel industry, and was able to live an easy and comfortable life just using the dividends. Well, he's just that incredible. This kind of person usually has the ability to foresee and predict the future, or at least that is how they're portrayed after the fact. But Grandfather denies all that, repeatedly saying that he was simply blessed with extraordinary luck. Anyway, even a lord like that can't help but grow increasingly eccentric when locked up alone on an island, where all his dreams are made real. Everyone knows that he's had a Western obsession from the start, but none of our parents really know when his bizarre black magic hobby began. Did his love of black magic begin way back when he became fascinated with everything Western? Or did his miraculous stretch of good luck while reviving his family cause him to feel a mysterious power in himself? At some point, Grandfather began to make the research of black magic his life's work. He filled his study up with suspicious books, chemicals, and magical items as he became increasingly bizarre. From what I've heard, those around him warmly watched over him, figuring that someone who achieved success in life had a right to do as he pleased, but there's no way that's true. They were probably just creeped out, thinking, that's disgusting, I don't want to get involved. Anyway, that agitated period was an age of big gambles, both with both opportunities and risks. Let's say Grandfather was born in this time period. He would have had no opportunities and probably would have advanced like a chess piece from mandatory education to college at a leisurely pace, never becoming more than an average salaryman. If that happened, he'd probably have sat somewhere happily talking behind his boss's back. No, not in a fancy dining hall like this, more like at a table in some bar. Then again, I'll bet this family conference would be a whole lot more relaxing if that were the case. I don't know, Kinzo strikes me as a type that if he didn't strike it rich, he would have joined the Yakuza or something. Okay, that's about it. That's enough about the old geezer. More importantly, let's talk about this incredible lunch! I'm already convinced by that sashimi salad appetizer. Koda-san's an excellent chef. Plus, these fish were caught in the adjacent seas, weren't they? They're totally different from the sashimi you get at the supermarket. Hey, quit it, battler. Your upbringing will be exposed. Everyone let out a big laugh. Damn it, you say that even though you love those cheap pubs. I've eaten in many unusual places because of work, but this stands right up there with the best of them. I'd be willing to bet Goda-san used to be pretty well known in those circles. Well, I don't know the details, but stuff got complicated at the long-standing hotel he used to work at, what with them opening a new establishment with the same name and breaking into factions, or whatever it was. In the middle of all that, he was apparently forced to retire. At that time, Mom just happened to be sending out job offers for a servant. As Goda removed the empty plates, he began to recount his own bumpy past without losing his smile. The world is a difficult place. However, thanks to the madam, I was given a chance to display my skills as a chef once again, this time for the Ushiromiya family. Although I enjoy experiencing the smiles of a larger number of people, I also find it quite entertaining to perform more delicate work that can please the limited number of those who have employed me. All this is thanks to the opportunity given to me by the madam. Goda-san respectfully bowed his head towards Aunt Natsuhi. That's because you are the most talented of the applicants. The decision was purely objective, not based on personal feelings, so there's no need to thank me. Dang, why does Aunt Natsuhi have to always sound so indifferent? If only she spoke with a bit more kindness, she might leave a different impression. Shan and Kumasawa-san entered from the hallway with the serving cart. Please excuse us. Now then, let's move on to today's dessert. Goda-san and the others laid the beautifully adorned dessert out in front of us all. I guess it's true when they say you have another stomach for dessert. I thought I'd already filled up on delicious food, but as soon as I laid eyes on that dessert, my stomach started yelling, "More!" I don't know much about desserts, but this looked really good. A white pudding-like substance was garnished with 2 shades of red sauce, and elegant rose petals adorned the dish. Normally, during a high-class meals like this, you're supposed to wait for the chef to extol the virtues of this particular meal before eating. However, Maria was completely indifferent to strict rules like that, so she got excited by this beautiful and delicious-looking dessert, jumping into the fray as soon as it was placed before her. Aunt Rosa scolded her, calling it bad manners, but George responded by saying, No, it's okay." Ooh? This part's sour. This part's sour. Battler, this one's no good. Ooh. Maria exclaimed as she sampled the 2 colored sauces. What? Some are good and some are bad? Okay, I'll give it a go. Apparently one sauce was sweet and the other sour. Despite it being bad manners, I also stuck my little finger in and licked it. Oh, one of those sauces was sour enough to make you pucker up. If it were yellow, I'd have expected lemon, but I couldn't guess what kind of sourness would be red. I decided to ask Shannon, who was putting away the serving cart behind us. Shannon-chan, what kind of sauce is this sour stuff? Shannon-chan hesitated to speak. Maybe her job was just to set the table, so she doesn't really know. Still, even considering that, she seems pretty stressed. Maybe I shouldn't have asked. Or did they use some ingredient that we'd better off not knowing about? Like blood. While Aunt Natsuhi made a gesture that seemed to indicate an oncoming headache, Kumasawa-san, who was setting the table at the opposite seat, began to chuckle. What do you think we made it out of? Oh, it'll shock you. Huh? I don't have a clue. Wait a sec. Kumasawa-basa, that laugh's pretty creepy. So, what is it? Don't tell anyone, okay? Listen very carefully. Kumasawa-san leaned across from the other side of the table. I leaned forward myself when she asked. Their interest caught Jessica, George Aniki, and, of course, Maria. Also put their ears closer. Oh, their interest caught Jessica, George Aniki, and, of course, Maria also put their ears closer. Oh, What? What? Quickly! Quickly! You see, the sour part is made from juice squeezed from a mackerel. Oh! What? Mackerel? That's crazy, we all thought, horrified. Only Maria accepting it, nodding sagely. Oh? Mackerels are sour. This is what comes out when you squeeze them. When Maria started clamoring that mackerel were sour, the adults were unable to contain their laughter. Only Aunt Rosa, her face red, whispered to Maria that mackerel is only sour once prepared as shimisaba. That's, vinegared shimisaba. Ah, now I totally remembered. Kumasawa-san was always like this, wasn't she? I think I remember tricking me too in all sorts of ways when I was young. Most lethal has got to be that one. Those flimsy black things in Chinese dishes. They're kikurage mushrooms. She told me that they were penguin meat, and I went all around school like a smartass telling everyone, didn't I? Kumasawa-chan, you sure haven't changed. You know Maria's gonna believe it now, right? Oh, it's just a joke. Now Goda-san's going to tell us what the sauce really is, won't he? Goda looked a little put off about his masterpiece being laughed at for such a bizarre reason. But after clearing his throat once, he introduced the dessert to us. Well then, allow me to introduce our dessert. After seeing how much you all enjoyed the rose garden earlier today, I finished this panna cotta in a rose garden style. The rose petals scattered across were selected just now from that very rose garden. The sauce is a combination of 2 reds, strawberry, and rose hips. Please enjoy this mixture of the strawberry sweetness and the rose hip sourness. Furthermore, the rose petals are merely decorative, so please avoid them while you eat. With that said, please enjoy. Oh man, I almost want to applaud before eating. Just like with medicine, reading the detailed description first seems to make it work a whole lot better. As Goda-san elaborated on the details of this dessert, it started to feel even more appetizing. Seriously, should you call him subtle or just talented? The dessert was probably planned from the beginning, but taking the hint when we all stopped in front of the rose garden earlier today, he displayed an incredible and timely awareness by adding just a few rose petals from that garden. This combination of sweet and sour was also exquisite. If it was just sweet, you'd just get used to it and bored halfway through. But if you reach the sour sauce at that point, you'd get a really vivid taste. And then, once you return to the sweet sauce, all the sourness in your mouth would be replaced with an enjoyable sweetness. I'm sure everyone else felt the same way. Every time Goda-san passed by one of our seats, someone praised the taste and his presentation. How is it, madam? Splendid, as always. It is worthy of entertaining our guests. I am most grateful for your words. Madam, did you know? I have heard that rosehip has the ability to cure headaches. I thought that you in particular would appreciate it, so I had it specially prepared. Is that so? Thank you. See, didn't I tell you, Natsuhine-san? Rosehip is great for headaches. So it seems. I do hope it actually helps. Ah, Goda-san, I love you. Hey, later on, why don't you tell me how they're treating you? Or if you can't, just let me know what sort of salary you'd like. Having your talent confined to the small island is sacrilege to humanity's cooking culture. What'd you think about working your craft for my company and delighting all our customers?
Hideyoshi-san, are you trying to steal away our Goda? Now that won't do at all. We'd better start treating Goda better or he'll get snatched up.
Yes, you really should. If you don't, someone's gonna grab him and you'll be stuck with 3 meals of Kumasawa-style mackerel cooking a day, won't you? Oh, that's harsh. It seems someone's holding a grudge against me. Everyone let out a huge laugh. According to Jessica, Kumasawa-san's mackerel jokes were a running gag that her parents had long since gotten used to. Kumasawa-san often claimed that mackerels had precious nutritional value, which could slow aging, make people smarter, and more. Supposedly, while it couldn't stop the outward signs of aging, it helped prevent aging on the inside. Since she was still spirited enough to tell these kinds of jokes at her age, there must be something to that theory. In that case, if you'll excuse me, prepare yourself for tonight's dinner. I'll be cooking plenty of mackerel dishes for you all, so you'd better look forward to it.
We sure will. Can't wait to get all puckered up from tonight's shimasaba.
That sounds wonderful. I wonder if they'll be serving any good Japanese sake. Oh, we certainly will. Haven't you heard of Rokenjima's famous mackerel liquor? Mackerel shochu? Kumasawa-san, together with Shannon-chan, bowed and pushed the serving cart away. It's pretty funny to watch Goda-san, who looked like his show had totally been stolen, explain in a serious voice that we'd be having calf steak for dinner. Kumasawa-san, thank you for doing that back there. As she pushed the serving cart, Shannon bowed her head very deeply. Oh, I haven't done anything that requires thanks.
Kumasawa may have played dumb, but she had obviously understood and saved Shannon in the nick of time. Back when Battler had asked about dessert, Shannon had unfortunately hesitated. There may have been several ways to dodge the question, but all of them would have required some quick wits. Shannon, who hesitated when hard-pressed for a response, was always suffering because of this small weakness. If only Shannon had a little of the craftiness needed to cleverly shake off a mistake like Goda, her life would have been a bit easier. The fact that she could perform other tasks flawlessly made this weakness even more unfortunate. However, there were some who understood Shannon's honest nature, her inability to gloss over a mistake and draw attention away from it. That was why Kumasawa had smoothly come to her rescue.
I just heard from Genji-san that there will be a change in the afternoon shifts. I believe you were given a break until this evening. I'm jealous. Huh? Oh, sorry. I haven't checked the shift chart yet. Ah, yes. I was thinking I might start cooking some mackerel in the oven. If you don't mind, I would be happy if you would help out a bit before your break. Ah, yes. I'd be delighted to help.
To Shannon, Kumasawa was like a mother among the servants.
Shannon Sweet Bean. Indeed. Indeed. The dining hall needed to be cleaned up, so we were chased out. Instead, tea was being served in the parlor. Apparently they prepared the black tea that Aunt Rosa had bought for Aunt Natsuhi. Maria said she also wanted to have some black tea, but my old bastard said she couldn't, and told us children to go play outside. Battler-kun, why don't we all go for a walk outside?
Go ahead and take a look at the roses or something. But keep a close eye on the weather. Sky's still clear, but the weather report kept on talking about rain.
Ooh, I want to go to the beach. The beach! Oh, that sounds wonderful. Playing on a sandy beach isn't something you get to do often, is it? Ah, good point. Okay, let's all go to the beach then. Ooh, let's go, let's go! Maria, be careful not to get your clothes wet. Or your shoes. Ooh, won't get wet. That obedience is so cute. Battler-kun, make sure you keep an eye out for Maria-chan, okay?
Sure, leave it to me. Hey, you're pretty obedient and cute yourself listening to Kyrie like that. Why don't you also listen to me obediently for a change?
Ha! Hell no. Let's go, everyone, come on. The children flew out of the parlor. They were replaced by Genji, who pushed a serving cart in and prepared to serve the tea. The parlor was filled with a sublime aroma with... wait a minute. Hold up. Okay.
The parlor was filled with sublime aroma which delighted everyone while they waited to sate their thirst. Rudolph's family certainly seems close. It's a wonderful thing.
Quit it, we're no match for your family, Aniki. That's true. You've raised Jessica-chan to be so adorable. I imagine that's yet another fruit of your talents at education and training, Natsuhine-san. Thank you. Natsuhi answered coldly. The conversation broke off then, and the parlors fell silent. Maybe Hideyoshi couldn't bear the silence because he broke it himself with an exaggerated gesture. Still, they sure do grow fast. I thought they'd be kids forever, but they start getting huge all of a sudden. And then they're adults like us. Adler-kun looks like a completely different person now. His body has grown much bigger, but he's still just a kid. Though you could say the same about my husband. I wonder where the border between child and adult is. I still don't feel as if though I've grown up.
Isn't that pitiful? That's not something the mother of a child should say.
That's right. We're not children anymore. We're all adults now. So I wish we could talk together on an intellectual level rather than an emotional one.
When Ava smiled with sharp sarcasm, everyone seemed to get more tense. It felt as though that pleasant tea aroma had been tossed out the window. Since long ago, we've always endeavored to engage in intellectual conversations. It seems your sarcasm occasionally misses its mark. Just as it always has.
Oh, what is it you've always endeavored to do? My. I wish I could wrap those words up and send them to this room a few decades ago. Right, Rosa? And thus begins the infighting. Yep. Rosa gave a vague smile. She knew that whether she agreed or disagreed, she'd earned the displeasure of one of her siblings. It was a bit of worldly wisdom that had been essential for someone growing up as the youngest sibling. Quit it, Aniki. We'd better get started on our main topic while the brats aren't around. Let's make that our intellectual discussion. As Rudolph glanced over the faces of all present, some let out a slight sigh, and some let a small look of resignation cross their face. They were approaching their unavoidable, true agenda. Last year, his life expectancy was estimated about 3 months, which I guess means he's got negative 9 months left now. Should we take that to mean it might suddenly happen at any time? The family head is still alive and well. The fact that you bring up such an inappropriate topic under the light of day makes you doubt your sanity, Rudolph-san. Still, Natsuhi-san, this is the sort of thing you can't put off until after something happens. He's still healthy now, which makes this the perfect time to talk about this. Well, we've still got time to plan. Just a bit of financial etiquette, you might say.
It seems Father is the focus of everyone's concern. Dr. Nanjo, could we hear the details from you? That appears to be what everyone else is waiting for, after all. Nanjo, who'd been standing by the window and staring out at the rose garden, let out a single cough when he realized that he was being called.
Dr. Nanjo, how is Father's condition?
Well, to begin, allow me to start with a revision, since my estimate last year that he'd only 3 months left was not borne out.
No need to explain. You're saying that measuring remaining life is only a prediction, not a promise, right?
That is correct. Because of that, while I will accept everyone's repeated questions, I can by no means confirm when he will pass away. A human's life is supported by their body and their mind. If the body is weak, the situation becomes more dangerous, but if the mind is strong enough to compensate for that weakness, the effects of one's condition can sometimes remain in a subdued state.
So you're saying that even if his body is weak, his mind is still firm and spirited. Kyrie, sorry, but please stay quiet for a bit. I'm sorry.
That is correct. Kinzo-san's body is being overwhelmed by the demon of ill health. This will hold especially true as long as he continues to partake of such strong alcohol. So he's in a crisis now because he drinks. And maybe he's lived this long because he drinks. There's Dad for you, the heavy drinker.
Well then, Doctor, I know you can't give anything more than a prediction, but what do you think about Father's chances of living until this day next year? That's quite a rude question to ask about the family head.
Natsuki jumped on Ava, not even bothering to hide her astonished expression. Ava stared back daringly, but Hideyoshi realized what was going on and tried to smooth things over with a forced smile. Natsuki-san, forgive her. Ava, you choose your words a bit more carefully, okay?
I'm sorry. I was just so concerned about Father's condition. Is that so? I hadn't realized.
Dr. Nanjo, please tell us. For the sake of the beautiful love of a daughter worried about her father's lifespan. Kraus laughed sarcastically, and Ava, smiling sweetly, returned an identical chuckle. You ask whether he'll still be healthy next year, but as a doctor it's very hard to say. Because while I do think this lull in his condition will continue for a while, if he suffers some kind of fit, there may be nothing we can do. After all, Rokenjima is a solitary island. It's not as though an ambulance could quickly jump in to save him. Normally, I'd want to have him placed in a large hospital on the mainland, but Father stated that he does not want his noble research interrupted. It seems he holds a grudge over the way we tried to force him out last year. Apparently, he strongly suspects that he'll be shut away in some hospital if he goes outside. And that's how things are now.
Has Dr. Nanjo been examining him?
Father trusts Dr. Nanjo. It seems he can be examined when in one of his better moods. I can examine his condition, but if I try to recommend medicine or hospitalization, he refuses to listen. I've really only been able to look. It's true some people hate doctors. Still, what a hassle. Nanjo sighed deeply. The purpose of an examination is to determine what medical treatment would be appropriate. Receiving an examination and then not following the advice given makes the whole thing pointless. So, to sum it up, he's still expected to live 3 months. There's no way to guess how long he'll continue to live while still on the verge of death.
Rudolph-san, couldn't you be a little bit more discreet with your words?
Ah, sorry. I've always talked this way. Give me a break.
I understand how Dr. Nanjo sees it. What about you, Kurosani-san?
To be perfectly honest, I have to disagree with Dr. Nanjo. I find it truly difficult to think of Father as a person so sick that he only has 3 months to live. His yell is as healthy as ever, and I still get chills at the thought of his fists raining down on me. Pushing the care of your father solely on the shoulders of the eldest sibling is far from fair. In the next world, get born after me. Okay, let's get back on track. So in the opinion of our impartial and neutral doctor, it wouldn't be odd for him to go any time. No offense to you, Aniki, but I'd rather trust the opinion of an expert in his field. Which means it's definitely not too early to start talking about Dad's assets.
Father's personal funds probably reach as high as several 10 billion yen, right? But it's not as though that's all neatly gathered as ready cash. It's not as simple as simply cutting a birthday cake with a knife.
That's an interesting way to put it. That's right, you sometimes get strawberries or chocolates on top of the cake, making it hard to eat cleanly cut into equal parts. Given that, don't you think it's important to discuss beforehand how best to stick the knife in?
I cannot understand how you can all openly discuss this as if the family head is dead even though he's alive. Come now, don't you see how important this is? After all, when the time comes, the inheritance of his fortune must be carried out immediately, right? Moreover, the glorious Ushiromiya house's wealth is vast. Don't you understand that careful discussion is necessary beforehand? There's a huge difference between this family's resources and your family's wealth. How rude! My birth family has nothing to do with this.
Natsuhi responded indignantly, though in a low voice, and the already dark atmosphere grew even more hostile. Give it a rest, Ava. Natsuhi-san, forgive us. Pardon her rudeness. Hideyoshi tried to smooth things over by glancing at both with a forced smile, but it only resulted in making the hostility between Ava and Natsuhi even more intense.
It seems I'll just get in the way if I stay any longer. Please, excuse me.
Nanjo rose from his seat and exited the parlor. To an outsider, it may have seemed like a normal act of courtesy, but his back was watched by several glances, envious of his ability to escape. After the doctor had exited and his footsteps had disappeared into the distance, Kraus recrossed his legs.
In other words, this is all what you would like to say. Father's remaining life is short. You want to quickly enter into a practical conference concerning the distribution of the inheritance. Why are you so eager, I wonder? Certainly, as you say, estimating and distributing the Ushiromiya family's wealth is no simple task. In that case, shouldn't we make careful and deliberate calculations? It seems to me that you're all impatient to split up the cake tonight. Isn't that true, Rosa? What reason is there to be hasty?
We aren't being hasty. However, we need to have an agreement between the siblings. It doesn't matter when we do that, but if the day Father's condition worsens is approaching, discussing the matter beforehand hardly seems hasty to me.
Rosa shot a glance at Ava and Rudolph. As the youngest sibling in the family, it was hard for her to be cross-examined by the eldest.
Oh? Is that your true opinion? I didn't expect that the most honest and pure-hearted of the siblings would say something like that. I wonder if those two told you to say it.
Quit it, Aniki. Rosa's one of Dad's kids, too. She's got as much a right to his inheritance as the rest of us. It's only natural that she'd be interested. After all, Dad'll definitely die, and that's not something that'll happen in the distant future. On the contrary, Aniki, you're way too relaxed. It almost seems like you'd like nothing better than to turn the discussion away from the inheritance issue.
What do you mean by that? Are you trying to accuse my husband of something?
Calm down, Natsuhi-san. Listen to what we have to say.
Nissan, I hear the times have been extremely good lately. Yes, since last year we've been in an unprecedented boom, and the yen keeps on rising. It seems that it's no longer a dream that the dollar will reach 100 yen. Also, the ruling party says that it'll establish health resort maintenance law by next year. At this moment, resort development companies across Japan are running about trying to gather as much funding as they can.
You certainly seem to know a lot about it. Japan is about to experience an unprecedented boom. It'll be a repeat of the Korean War demands, the time during which Father revived the Ushiromiya family. The people of Japan have been working like mad, achieving vast economic growth and becoming the most well-off people in the world, reaching the height of our prosperity. We've reached an era where private spending is vast, which means easy money for institutions that can capitalize on that fact. The three kinds of electrical appliances no longer represent the people's needs. The people need ski resorts, golf courses, public pools, resort hotels, and theme parks. Have you gone to Disneyland, which opened just a few years ago? What an excellent theme park. It's a place where even an adult can be a kid and have fun with his family. No longer do we count our sole virtue to be selfless devotion while failing to care for our families. We have become the most prosperous people in the world, and now we can finally enjoy the benefits.
Kraus-san, your foresight's nothing to sneeze at. When I heard that sort of thing several years ago, I thought it was crazy. When I heard about the G5 Nations Plaza Accord, that all changed. The yen shot up, and I'll bet the price of land skyrockets soon, too. Won't be long before Japan becomes the economic center of the world. You've got a great sense of the direction the world's moving, Kraus-san. At least there can be no debate about that. I feel the same as Hideyoshi-san. Aniki, you can read into the next decade of history. I'll bet you got that keen sense from Dad, and it's incredible. However, unlike Dad, the timing of her predictions has been off sometimes, right? Nissan, you've been starting resort projects everywhere, convinced that Japan will soon see a boom, but almost all of them continue to fail. While I'm sure that the era you predicted will soon arrive, it seems you misread the timing of that boom. You were too early. You then panicked and tried to sell everything off, which only opened the wound even further. If your nose was really so reliable, then there should be no reason for you to sell off your property. Is this proof that you mistrust your own ability? How rude! Are you trying to insult my husband? Natsuhi's forehead creased as she rose from the sofa. Eva, paying this no heed, stared at Kraus with a confident smile. Kraus, who also maintained his confident appearance, told Natsuhi to sit down.
Please stop, Natsuhi. Eva's always been incapable of talking any other way. Calm down a little, or your headache will get worse.
There's proof of your lack of talent right next to us. After all, Nissan, weren't you all excited about turning this island into a resort? You built a wonderful resort hotel and beautifully maintained the garden. I'm just an amateur and don't pretend to understand, but you must have used a significant amount of money for that, right? And what is that to you? My husband's business is none of yours.
Actually, that's not true, Natsuhi-san. Rokkenjima doesn't belong to Aniki. It belongs to Dad. Of course, the hotel does belong to Aniki, right? In fact, we'd be more than willing to pay lodging fees for tonight. What do you think, Rosa?
Well, if what I have on hand will suffice.
If I can make it into a resort, this island's financial worth will rise. It is true that expenses have piled up, but we can expect a large harvest in the future. When that happens, all of you stand to profit as well, do you not?
I understand that. If the value of this island rises, that'll increase our portions when we distribute the inheritance. Of course, I won't ask you to divide the island and the mansion into 4 equal parts. We can just resolve the matter with money equal to the value of the property.
If you understand that much, what about my business makes you so dissatisfied?
We aren't dissatisfied, we're uneasy. In the first place, Aniki, when do you plan to open that hotel? Left this way, you won't get anything out of it except our grubby handprints, right?
That's right. It's an important tool for your business, isn't it? Surely you can't keep it locked up until the moment you open it. Buildings go bad if you don't use them and air them out every once in a while. Even so, it's a bit extravagant for a guest house that we only use once a year. Right, Rosa? That's right. Considering how wonderful it is, I'm quite sure it'll become popular once you open it. Oh, so the hotel you keep talking about is the guest house.
It's splendid. Just as Rosa said, if you were to open it, I'm sure it would become popular. The lodging they had been guided to wasn't originally intended to serve as a guest house. It was originally constructed as a resort hotel. However, even though it was built 2 years previously, there was still absolutely no prospect of it opening.
Nissan, it's just like all of your enterprises. Your attention and planning are both fabulous. Then it becomes unmaintainable partway through and ends before you have a chance to earn any profit.
You were brilliant when you saw that using this island only as a place to live was a waste. I think it was a pretty good plan to turn it into a resort that could use the prospect of marine sports, fishing, and honeymoons and the like to attract customers.
Thank you for the lure, kiss, little kitty. Hope your day's going well.
If I were the oldest son, I'm sure I'd strained my brain looking for a way to make a profit off this island.
But 2 full years have passed since you finished building, right? After 2 years, you still haven't the opportunity to open it. Going good. Yep. We are almost at Friday, which means we're almost at the weekend, so Friday Eve, as it were. And I get to stream this tonight, which I've been wanting to do for a while, but I just wanted to make sure my voice was in
going to be in good condition. Okay, where was I? Let's see. But 2 full years have passed since you finished building, right? After 2 years, you still haven't had the opportunity to open it. Where's the managing company you entrusted it to? Impertinence! That is not my husband's fault. There's just been some trouble with the company that my husband contracted with. No matter how you look at it, we are victims here.
And yet, the rumors we've heard about this company you hired haven't been good at all.
Let's be clear about this, dear. Did you really think that we wouldn't hear about how lack of payment, embezzlement, and other issues led to the project disintegrating mid-flight? We even have evidence. I don't know what kind of evidence you think you found, but it's all baseless. As new members in the tourism industry, it's necessary for us to lay the groundwork with various people. It is also important to investigate the trustworthiness of our partners. It's merely taken us some time to meet that goal.
I'll admit that in my rashness, the hotel was completed too early. However, it is not as though we're paying maintenance costs. It's a foundation that will eventually become immensely significant.
Liar. I'll bet you want to liquidate it, but can't. After all, there's no reason for anyone to buy such an extravagant hotel on an isolated, empty island without any established sightseeing routes. And anyway, what about all the loans you made for this project?
Even if you aren't incurring maintenance costs, the borrowed money that you can't return just keeps growing. I'm sorry, Krasny-san, but I've investigated the development plan for this island a bit. To be honest, I haven't heard anything good either.
Hideyoshi-san, I can see how you might be left with that impression by looking only at the current financial situation. However, this is a forward-looking investment. I have no choice but to admit that my prediction was mistaken, and that up until now several liabilities have been created. However, the times have finally caught up with me. I will soon regain everything that I've lost up to this point. No, actually all of the investments I've made until now will finally return to my possession. That's right, just like throwing away a small fry, which then becomes a salmon. They will come back even bigger than before.
I'll accept that. The resort business will probably see an unprecedented boom before long, though I don't know if it'll be enough to cover all your debt.
Yes, this is the first game. We are in, technically this is chapter 4 of the first game. So if you want an introduction to all the characters, you can go look at the YouTube releases that I've put up. Give me a moment while I type that into the chat here. Yeah, it's possible. Because I've streamed this twice thus far. This is the 3rd time. I usually cover about 2 chapters per stream. Although that could change depending on how long they take. We're about an hour in, so I assume that this chapter is going to be over soon.
I'll accept that. The resort business...
Oh, let's see. I already said this.
However, Krasny-san, now after all your failures in the past, who exactly do you expect to provide you with funding?
Oh, you meant when you were playing. Okay, I gotcha.
And this isn't some small amount we're talking about. You're gonna need enough funding to fill the massive hole you've dug.
What are you trying to say, Hideyoshi-san?
Nazi-san, please don't get angry. We looked into this too. We checked to see who might have provided Krasny-san with enough financing
to support his recent large-scale projects despite his string of failures. And we discovered that no such backer exists. The iron rule of the money roulette is that you bet against the loser. I mean, against the loser. Aniki, you're a fairly well-known loser in this field. It's true that prosperous times are about to come, but when we look for people who consider that enough to overlook your string of failures, and also had enough for the investment, we found no candidates. So, the big question now is where you got that money from. Oh,
Now, isn't this intriguing? And?
Dear, how long do you plan to let these ridiculous remarks stand?
Sit down, Natsuhi-san. Let's cut to the point. Aniki, you've been diverting Dad's private funds for your own businesses. There's pretty much no room for doubt. If you think we've made some kind of mistake, please feel free to explain.
Rudolph, don't call it diverting funds. This is embezzlement, plain and simple. A huge crime that can be criminally prosecuted. This sort of rudeness cannot be tolerated! How can you face the successor to the Ushiromiya head family and level these absurd accusations? They aren't absurd, they're right on the mark. I'm sure he'd like to somehow make his business succeed and to recover his losses, but his debt keeps getting bigger. He's just trying to cover up the failure of one gamble by making an even bigger one. It's only natural that he'd try to grab any source of funding close at hand. Let me be frank, Nissan. What you're doing is embezzlement. You're betraying Father. You know that we'll have the court settle this after it's all over, right? Do you think that that kind of person has any right to call themselves a successor to the Ushiromiya head family? Of all the... You dare to claim that he's betrayed the family head? You no longer have the right to straddle the threshold of the glorious Ushiromiya family. Leave this place at once. Now! Get out!
Natsuhi had already reached the limits of her anger, shouted at Ava in a rage. She then pointed alternately at Ava in the hallway, demanding that she leave. Ava took out a folding fan and fanned herself with it, glaring maliciously at Natsuhi as though silently daring her to repeat what she'd said. However, her mouth was still smiling, curved in the shape of a crescent moon. In that unpleasant silence, Rosa gulped.
Hey, Natsuhine-san. To whom do you think you are speaking in such a tone? I'm speaking to the exceedingly rude sister of my husband. As the person in charge of family affairs, I cannot overlook any more of this. In charge of the affairs? Be silent, lowly maidservant!
Ava folded the fan with a snap and rose to her feet energetically. Compared to the elegance and playfulness she'd shown until a second ago, she was now unimaginably aggressive.
How foolish! You stand down! Before Ava of the Ushiromiya family. You tell me to stand down? Me, Ushiromiya Ava, the third ranked in the Ushiromiya family hierarchy, and the one allowed to sit at the left shoulder of the head? Know your place, and then look at your shabby self in a mirror. Where's a symbol of the wing on your clothes? Where are you permitted to wear the one-winged eagle? And aren't you nothing more than a borrowed womb to house the next successor to the Ushiromiya family? Understand your place, you common housemaid!
Ava's face twisted hideously as her words gouged into Natsuhi's heart like talons wrenching at it. There were 100 ways Natsuhi wanted to respond. However, her anger and sorrow crushed her throat, and none of those words managed to make it to her mouth. Her anger had nowhere to go, and became a single hot tear that slowly dripped down.
What's wrong? If you have something to say, please do so. Come on!
Ava faced her with a provocative gaze. However, Natsuhi could do nothing but tremble, her clenched fists quivering. Kraus quietly broke that powder keg tension.
Natsuhi, leave your seat. You should go cool your head.
What?
Natsuhi, resenting the fact that her husband had not come to her aid, shifted the focus of her attack.
Dear, don't you understand what they're saying about you? These people are baselessly calling you a traitor to Father. They're making light of the fact that we protect the glory of the Ushiromiya family even though we are constantly expending every effort to earn that glory from Father. They trample all of that underfoot with their hateful rambling. And you don't even try to fight back. Why? I'm only standing up for us because you won't, but you've been putting the entire burden on me for some time now. And now you tell me to go cool my head? It's always me. Even though I've always considered this family's affairs so seriously, you've...
Natsuhi was already unable to hide her tears. She flew from the room in that state. After that, all that remained was a somewhat embarrassed mood about the parlor. When the sound of footsteps grew distant and silence returned, Kraus shrugged his shoulders slightly. I apologize for my wife. She has always been bad at controlling her emotions. It's even been rough for me.
If that's what's been managing your household, you must suffer to no end, Nissan. Madam, it's nothing. Leave me be.
Natsuhi flew into her room and threw herself onto her bed, lamenting. Those heart-wrenching sobs reached Kumasawa in the hallway.
Poor Madam Natsuhi. There's a deep enmity between her and Eva-sama. Explaining their relationship would be very trying for me as a woman. The Ushiromiya family holds blood in high regard, but if a woman marries and leaves the family, they are normally removed from the family register. Thus, under normal circumstances, Eva-sama should have been removed when she married Hideyoshi-sama. However, there is no one deserving of the blame in this matter. The madam certainly bears no guilt. There's nothing to call it other than a whim of God. Kraus-sama and Natsuhi-sama were not blessed with children for some time. After all, this is the male-dominant Ushiromiya family. The wife is merely a tool to create an heir. If such a wife cannot fulfill her only duty, she will not be even treated as human. It pains me to remember how the master tortured Madam during that time. Back then, a wedding between Eva-sama and Hideyoshi-sama was being discussed. Eva-sama was sly. Taking advantage of Madam's inability to become pregnant, she gained the favor of the master. She inspired her to allow her to marry and give birth to a successor herself, making sure to avoid transferring her name out of the Ushiromiya register. There was a vast difference in the Ushiromiya hierarchy between Madam, who married into the Ushiromiya family and was treated like an outsider, and Eva-sama, who was related to the family by blood and whose husband took on the Ushiromiya name. Furthermore, Eva-sama actually gave birth first, and to a boy. As for how much weaker Madam's position was than Eva-sama's, well, I believe you could see for yourself. I'm sure Madam is tormented by the thought that if only she had gotten pregnant earlier, the master wouldn't have accepted Eva-sama's request to keep her last name after marriage, and Eva-sama wouldn't have been permitted to act as arrogantly as she did today. However, that was not Madam's fault. All the blame lies with God's whims and the stork that delivered Jessica late. Even so, Madam won't allow herself to see things this way. She probably can't help but cry bitter tears as a woman at her inability to carry out the duties expected of a wife. How sad. I cannot do anything except watch over her from the shadows. Chapter break. Literally. Rewind the clock a bit. We crossed the hall again on our way to the entrance. As we did, we once again spotted that witch's portrait. However, spotted is probably not the best word to describe that experience. It's more like our eyes were inexorably drawn to it. That woman's eyes, with their sage-like glamour, definitely had the power to make those who viewed it stand rooted to the spot. So this is the witch Beatrice. I wonder if that story's true. Ooh, Battler doesn't believe? Back when he had asked what this picture was, the first person to tell him had been Maria. Therefore, when Battler showed signs of doubt, Maria must have felt that Battler didn't have faith in her. Of course, that wasn't what Battler meant. Maria ran up to the portrait and began banging on a plate hanging below it. Maybe the title of the portrait was written there. Maria, trying to prove that she wasn't lying, obstinately continued to hit the plate. Sorry about that. It's not like I doubt anything you said, Maria. Ooh, Battler believes. Ooh. When he patted Maria's head and apologized, she seemed to accept it, sticking out her chest and proudly ooh-ooing. What's this? My beloved witch Beatrice. Behold the sweet fish river. What's with this weird, huge epitaph? The plate did have the title of the portrait written on it, but it was much too big to contain only that. Beneath the title was what appeared to be a long epitaph. If you just skimmed over it, several unnerving words would jump out at you. Incredible, isn't it? Grandfather had that made. Pretty deep, huh? Ooh, I know. It's the place where the gold's hidden. Wait, is it that story about the Ushiromiya family's hidden gold? Now, there's another thing I remember from long ago. Hold on. Aniki, is this for real? Grandfather had this made, but he never said anything about this picture or the epitaph. Even so, amongst the family, it's often whispered that it indicates the location of grandfather's hidden gold, and that he will relinquish the inheritance and the gold to the person who solves the riddle. Ooh, I heard that too! Lots and lots of gold! Well, something like that. Something like 10 metric tons of gold bars? I think it's fake, though. Still, when you read about it on an epitaph like this, it almost seems real. I think I already explained grandfather's upbringing, but let me also mention the Ushiromiya family's legend of the gold. Grandfather succeeded the Ushiromiya family after it was destroyed in the Great Kanto earthquake, and by successfully riding the stormy seas after the war, he managed to accumulate great wealth. That much of the story everyone knows. However, this is where the strange part begins. Part of it involves grandfather's black magic obsession, so its credibility is extremely low, but... well, wait until the end before you doubt or make fun of it. After the war, grandfather correctly predicted what the future would hold and won in a huge gamble, accumulating a vast store of wealth. But there's a mysterious legend about how he gained his initial funding. Grandfather came from a branch family, had no connections in the business world or the financial world. Even though he later built connections with the occupying forces, he supposedly started as a nameless person who hadn't yet gained anyone's trust. It takes trust to gather money. There's no way anyone would lend money to someone they didn't trust. How did grandfather, who had no reputation at all, manage to obtain his first vast chunk of funds? When asked that question, grandfather supposedly answered like this. On a certain day, I encountered the golden witch Beatrice. Grandfather then went on and on about his continuing research into alchemy and techniques before summoning demons in order to become a great magician. And the entity summoned as a result of the demon calling ceremony was the golden witch Beatrice. He then apparently made a contract by which he would receive fortune and honor in exchange for his own soul. The witch granted grandfather 10 tons of gold then. Grandfather used this gold as collateral to prepare a vast quantity of funds, and thank you so much for hosting the stream, his little kitty. I appreciate it. Let's see. Do I have the shout-out ability for this yet? Give me a second. How do I spell that? Hold on. His little kitty. Okay. There we go. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Okay, where was it? Grandfather uses gold as collateral to prepare a vast quantity of funds, which he then used to multiply his wealth many times over and revive the Ushiromiya family. It seems the story's so old that even our parents were told it when they were still children. You're welcome. Yeah, everyone, go follow his little kitty. They were playing Kingdom Hearts 3 last on their channel. They've also played Halo. I believe was Darksiders one of those? I think I saw you playing Darksiders once. So yeah, lots of variety there. So go check her out. It seems the story's so old that even our parents were told it when they were still children. So back when our parents were young, they explored this island in all sorts of ways, believing that the gold grandfather had received from the witch might be hidden somewhere. However, since there was the danger of them getting lost in the abandoned forest, grandmother began to spread the story that the witch lived in the forest and approaching it was forbidden. I remember that old story. When we were little, we also went all over the island searching for treasure after our parents told us about it. Didn't we get lost in the forest once and start crying until some of the servants found us? Our parents got so mad. Dang, that takes me back. We sure were idiots, weren't we? After all, Grandfather only bought this island after using those funds to get rich, right? That means he must have had the gold before coming here. There's no way the gold's on this island. That's not necessarily so. Maybe the gold was hidden on the island from the beginning, and he bought the whole island just to ensure that it'd be his and his alone. There was a whole 10 metric tons of it, right? It seems more realistic that he tried to secure the place where it was hidden rather than try to move it all. The bespectacled man makes sense. Oh no. Oh no. If anybody has any artistic talent in the chat, or even just good, decent memeing skills, if somebody could make the "is this a pigeon" meme with George, that would be fantastic. This epitaph was made 2 years ago, and since Grandfather wrote it himself, yeah, it does make the legend of the gold seem more believable. The so-called witch's gold that revived the Ushiromiya family weighed 10 tons. Maybe that's sleeping somewhere ready to be turned over to whoever can solve Grandfather's riddle. Maybe that's why he did it. Heh. I guess it sounds like Grandfather's style or something. If that's true, it's pretty incredible. The epitaph carved into the plate was very mysterious, with something like a poem or a song written on it. The text was incredibly disturbing, filled with the signs of Grandfather's black magic hobby, and its contents were in truly bad taste. But it could definitely be viewed as a puzzle, which, if solved, might lead to the hidden gold. Whether that's what he intended or not, I can't even imagine what his true motive might have been. All we know for sure is that Grandfather put this shady epitaph here so that everyone in the family could see it. Just, "is this a pigeon," I think would be fine. I've got nothing, I got no better ideas at this time. All we know for sure is that Grandfather put this shady epitaph here so that everyone in the family could see it. You think Kishu was making it? Nice, nice. Thank you. Thank her for me. We also know that he's hinted at the existence of the gold without ever talking about where it might be hidden, at least so far. These facts were then embellished by the imaginations of our parents, who were convinced that Grandfather was challenging us to a battle of wits. Sounds just like my dad, so greedy that he takes something like this so seriously. He may laugh at Grandfather's black magic obsession, but he'd still believe this story about the hidden gold. It just sounds so good. Well, it's certainly not a realistic story. At that time, when Grandfather was still nameless and had no connections, there was no way anyone would just lend him a massive quantity of gold bars for free. If such a person actually did exist, it's not unthinkable that Grandfather would call such a sponsor a witch. Yeah, but it's 10 tons! 10 tons! If you cash that in, how much would it become? How much would it come to? I mean, it had to be a ridiculous amount, right? It would certainly be a ridiculous amount. They say that the total amount of gold mined by humankind since the dawn of history is 100,000 metric tons at most. That 1/10,000th of all the gold humankind has obtained throughout history should belong to just one person is just insane. On top of that, this witch supposedly had all that gold collected in one place and was able to lend it to Grandfather just like that. We're not talking about any ordinary person. Well, to me, that 10 tons number seems pretty fishy. After all, no one's actually seen it except Grandfather, right? Even if we assume that some generous witch existed and lent him some gold, maybe it was closer to 10 kilograms than 10 tons? Even 10 kilograms would be a pretty incredible sum, right? Ooh, 10 kilograms of gold is how much? Maria, who wasn't following the story and felt like she was being spoken to in riddles, finally found a place where she could ask us a question. It was a question I also wanted answered right then. Whether it was 10 kilograms or 10 tons, it still felt like a huge amount, but I had no idea exactly how huge. George Aniki folded his arms and tried to remember the market price of gold. Well, Even the value of gold is affected by the market, and the value of the physical gold can change depending on its purity and the trustworthiness of the foundry. Okay. Give me a second here. I am looking at it as we speak. Or at least I'm trying to. Technically, George was supposed to be the one pointing at the butterfly, not the butterfly himself. But thank you. I unironically love it. I'm gonna post that in my Discord here. Give me just a second, folks. Which, speaking of the Discord, does somebody... Well, no, I think... Well, yeah, I think there's at least one person in the chat who's not in my Discord yet. If somebody would be so kind as to type !Discord into the chat while I put this picture there, that would be fantastic. Okay, there we go. Thanks so much, Jabin. Appreciate it. Okay, where was I? Okay, grabbing this one too. There we go. Thank you. Posting this one in my Discord as well. Alright, where was I? You'd also need to pay handling fees to cash it in. However, that doesn't change the fact that it's a precious metal, and some people estimate that humanity will mine all the world's gold within half a century if gold mining continues at its current rate. Just guessing haphazardly, I think you could expect a price of about 2 million yen per kilogram. Whoa! Just now I randomly said 10 kilograms since it sounded smaller, but even that would be worth 20 million yen, wouldn't it? Ooh, I weigh 28 kilograms. Which means that if we had Maria-chan's weight in gold, we could estimate it's worth it over 50 million yen. That's just unbelievable. How much would 10 tons be then? 10 kilograms is 20 million yen, which you would multiply by 1,000, so, 20 billion yen? What the hell? How much is 20 billion yen actually worth? We can only measure it relative to our own pocketbooks. Anyway, let's say that a person's wages over a lifetime are about 200 million yen. You grow up and work like crazy, sacrificing your life for your company, and you're finally freed as you approach old age. Everything, including retirement money, might add up to about 200 million yen. In other words, that's about the amount of money that'll be made throughout a human's life. No, you could even call it the value of the life. So 100 times that sum is an unbelievable amount of money. If you work from age 20 to 60, that's 40 years of work. So it's equal to 4,000 years of work wages. If you worked every day starting from the Jomon period, you'd only reach that number about now. Ooh, is 20 billion yen a lot? Heck yeah, it's a lot. Maria, you love shortcake, right? You could buy more shortcake than you could possibly eat for the rest of your life. However, while that might be possible with 20 billion yen in cash, I don't think it would be very realistic to have that much in gold bars all in one place. Just as I said, gold is extremely heavy, so it isn't exactly convenient as a method of storing wealth. Sure, you could imagine someone gathering their fortune together as an incredibly high-value stocks or precious gems. You often hear of people who traded their wealth for precious gems so that they could carry it around with them during the chaotic times of the war. But you don't usually hear stories of people exchanging their wealth for gold. It may be heavy, but it's the most trusted and stable form of wealth internationally, so maybe that was important? For example, bonds are just scraps of paper. If scraps of paper, the whole country goes under. You can also look at it that way. But even one 10-kilogram ingot is pretty heavy to carry around. Haven't you heard? A 50-kilogram person can't carry a 50-kilogram bag over their shoulder. With that many gold bars, the amount of labor and risk for one person would be hard to calculate. So what you're saying is, well, it'd be one thing if you had a stack of banknotes worth 20 billion yen. 20 billion yen in gold would be such a big mountain that it'd be... But practically, it'd be kind of pointless. That's right. Although the legend of the gold does have a pretty interesting ring to it, just the part about the 10 tons of gold makes it pretty much impossible. If you think about it logically like that, it sounds obviously fake. Kinda brings you back down to reality. Anyway, that's grandfather for you. Maybe he exaggerated the story of how some kind wealthy person gave him a loan by saying he got 10 tons of gold from a witch. Even the number 10 tons feels pretty symbolic. You mean like his gratitude for the money he borrowed was worth 10 tons of gold or something? Maybe some rich man's leisured wife generously granted it to grandfather. And maybe he started calling this person a witch. I see. Jessica's example isn't bad. Someone who generously lent a huge sum of money to grandfather when he still had no reputation might as well be called a witch. Furthermore, grandfather actually did use that money to build a vast amount of wealth later on. The fact that this person was so great at judging people might also justify calling her a witch. Also, since she went to the trouble of lending all that money, she might have enthusiastically overseen how it was spent. The decision to unexpectedly get involved with the occupying forces and profit from the Korean War demands might have been inspired by the witch herself. That might explain why he claimed to have received both wealth and honor from her. I see. So, in other words, this witch lent grandfather the funds necessary to revive the Ushiromiya family, and he owed her big time. And then he felt so grateful that he had that huge painting drawn and displayed. Yeah, that's not that crazy a story. It's even possible this person was an old granny who looked like a witch. Maybe her grandfather idolized her, and that's why he had her drawn to look so beautiful. I bet if we ever did meet this person, she wouldn't be nearly this pretty. That's possible. The name Beatrice sounds pretty Western, and if you think about how everyone in our family has Western names, maybe even the name Beatrice is the result of grandfather trying to rearrange some Japanese person's name to make it sound Western. I get it. That means this pretty girl doesn't exist outside the picture. I guess that means I won't be able to rub those elegant breasts. Yeah, in the first place, isn't having a witch pretty bizarre by itself? I feel like you could find something like that anywhere on Earth. I laughed and made fun of the witch, trying to distinguish myself from the kid I was 6 years ago who feared the witch of the forest, when Maria tugged on my sleeve. I could tell by how hard she pulled that she was a bit upset. Huh? What is it, Maria? Oh, Beatrice exists! Maria stared up at me. She had on her usual sour look, but I could tell she was angry by the color of her eyes. Witches exist! Witches exist! Ooh! Well, sure, they do exist if you turn on the TV and watch anime or something. Exist! Witches exist! Ooh! I started getting impatient, not knowing why Maria was jumping on me like this. Then Jessica chapped me on the shoulder and whispered, "Dumbass, you're smashing a kid's dream. Maria really believes things like witches and Beatrice exist." Come to think of it, Maria-chan, in social studies at your school, when you were asked to write what you wanted to be when you grew up, you wrote a witch, didn't you? Maria nodded seriously. Tears started to run from the corners of her eyes. I see. To a girl who wants to become a witch in the future, the existence of Beatrice was proof that witches do exist in this world, and was therefore an image that she yearned after and admired. Exist! Exist! Witches exist! But Ballard still doesn't believe. Ooh! It's okay, witches do exist. I believe it. George Aniki kneeled down and hugged Maria's head. Watching this, Jessica poked my side. So that's what it is. It's like shouting that Santa Claus doesn't exist in front of a child who believes in him on Christmas Eve. I'm not the kind of guy who likes to shatter kids' dreams. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to make fun of your dreams, so I apologize. Beatrice does exist. Even now, she's living in the forest and comes to the mansion every night to peek in and see what everyone's doing. So you shouldn't go into the forest. At night, you mustn't stare into the dark forest.
You might be seen by the witch of the forest, Beatrice. After all, grandmother said so.
Ooh, really? Battler really believes?
Yeah, I believe. Sorry for doubting it. Come on, let's make up. I stuck out my hand, Maria grabbed it with her tiny hand, and we made up. Maria didn't grumble any more than that, so George, Aniki, and Jessica were relieved.
Oh, so this is where all of you were. I was sure you had just left to go to the beach.
Shannon, carrying a basket, was surprised to find all of us gathered in front of the portrait. Ah, Shannon! Well, this is the first time Battler's seen Beatrice's portrait. He was just fascinated by it. Well, first time if you don't count the earlier time when we first came in, but it's the first time I really took notice of it. But that's splitting hairs.
That's right, it certainly is fascinating. Beatrice-sama is really, truly beautiful. I'm sure that she captivated the master.
In addition to the patron theory, there's also a theory that she was grandfather's first love. Either way, although it's been several decades since he met her, even now she holds a special place in his heart. Which must mean that he's still captivated by her. Sheesh. That must have made grandmother pretty jealous, huh? I'm not really sure, but that might actually be true. Apparently grandmother believed he was cheating on her with some blonde.
Ooh, good smell. Good smell coming from Shannon.
Maria, sniffing, approached the basket Shannon was holding with interest. After hearing that, I noticed a fragrant scent with a touch of vanilla.
I apologize. I was told by Kumasawa-san to bring them to everyone.
What is it, I wonder? Oh, excellent. Cookies.
Who? Want to eat cookies? Want to eat cookies? Who? Please, eat as much as you would like. But,
Would it be appropriate to serve cookies in a place like this in front of the portrait? Shan sent us a glance that seemed to ask what we wanted to do about it. Oh yeah, I guess eating here would be bad manners, generally speaking.
Maria, why don't we eat someplace else? Let's put the cookies in a bento and have a picnic. Ooh! Have a picnic! Have a picnic! If we can eat cookies, let's go!
Yeah, let's go get some fresh air. We shouldn't stuff ourselves right in front of the witch.
That's right, didn't we say that we wanted to go down to the beach in the first place?
Let's go! Shannon-chan, sorry, but could I ask you to get us a blanket to sit on and some flasks of tea?
Right. Certainly.
Shannon received her instructions and gracefully bowed before retracing her steps. We headed for the beach on our own. Everyone headed for the entrance in a group. Feeling as though that witch was staring down at our backs, I turned around once more.
Oh? Battler, you still don't believe?
No, I believe. It'd be so much cooler that way. There's a slight delay on my end between when you're reading off the lines for some of the pages and when the words show up. Not sure if it's my connection or something else. Are you saying that my voice comes through before the picture does, or that the picture comes through before my voice does? I would think it'd be the former, because that would make more sense. Even so, my voice comes through first. Huh, that's weird. Yeah, it might be connection issues. I don't really know what else that could be. The Golden Witch Beatrice gave grandfather 10 tons of gold. And that gold might be sleeping around here somewhere. Besides, didn't grandfather write that strange epitaph as though challenging us to find it if we can? I'd say that kind of adventurous story is way better. 20 billion yen worth of gold, huh? Even if we split it up between the four of us, that's still a ridiculous amount of money.
Hello there.
Hello there, Reeve. Thank you for joining. How goes it? $5 billion yen for each of us. Incredible. With that kind of money, you could probably make any sort of business prosper. In fact, we could live our whole lives fabulously without working at all.
Ooh. I don't want 5 billion yen. I want cookies. Cookies! Maria would take cookies over money. Still, 5 billion yen, that's like a dream. All you have to do is explain to the child that you can buy cookies with that kind of money.
Ridiculous. Is it possible that you all still truly believe in Father's legend of the gold?
Of course we don't believe that story about a witch giving him gold. But there's no mistake about the gold itself. The fact that Father obtained gold bars from an unknown source has been confirmed in several ways. Nothing much. I think I ate something that's irritating my throat. Otherwise, it goes well. And you? It's going well. Nothing irritating my throat currently, thankfully. I have not had to go on a Broly rant, so far so good. It did remind me I needed to hydrate, though, so thank you. The fact that Father obtained gold bars from an unknown source has been confirmed in several ways. We've heard that before the president of the Maruso company died, Father showed him a large pile of gold somewhere. Father used that man's claim as proof that there were 10 tons worth.
That's just the nonsense of a senile old man. Along with Father, he was just fabricating a story. You can't take it seriously.
If that gold didn't exist, he wouldn't have been able to gather so much funding. Before the president died, he was a person with such a sincere personality that he earned the respect of many in the business world. He wouldn't have become a partner to such fraud. Aniki, the president of Maruso, definitely saw it. 10 tons of it clearly with his own eyes. Even more, Dad let the president take one ingot at random and have it examined. The results of the examination show that the 10-kilogram ingot was 99.99% pure. He said that the Ushiromiya family crest, the one-winged eagle, was imprinted on it. Almost instantly, the Ushiromiya legend of the gold spread amongst the fixers of the business world. Gold from an unknown foundry has a poor rate of conversion into money. Thinking that it was a chance for decisive profits, they accepted it as collateral, and as a result, Father was able to receive massive loans.
Is there no limit to the absurdity you're willing to accept? How old are you people? Are you still taking that nursery tale you heard as children seriously? Where's the proof that this 10 tons of gold even exists? Aren't you just parroting the lies of Father and a few of those close to him?
Of course, it's just a story. But still, Aniki, the amount of money Dad raised required a suitable amount of collateral. Even if the gold itself was just a rumor, it's an undoubtable fact that he showed them a treasure of comparable worth.
It was just an illusion of money created by our penniless father. He acted as though he actually had gold that didn't exist, fooling his sponsors. It was probably the gamble of a lifetime. Luckily, his use of those funds proved successful. If the Korean War demands hadn't come and the Ushiromiya family had not been restored, Father probably would have been hounded after as the crook of the century.
So you're saying the gold never existed and Father made it all up?
Of course. And because of that, the illusion of gold became a mere inconvenience once it achieved enough success. That's why later on, Father added all that about a witch and black magic, weakening the credibility of the entire story. In other words, he revealed that the illusion of the gold was a fabrication. If he claimed to receive the gold from a witch, no one would believe that it existed at all, right? It's also possible he said it for all your sakes. Nevertheless, here comes some stupid offspring wanting to divide up this non-existent gold, along with the rest of the inheritance. Rosa, don't tell me that even you believe in a fabrication like this.
I can't prove whether or not Father really had the gold. I just want to claim my rightful share as one of Father's 4 children.
Oh, it seems even you have started to talk that way, Rosa. I see. So that's what you're all getting at. You're trying to claim that I'm attempting to keep all the gold for myself.
Nissan, you've gathered a massive supply of funds, that is a fact. If we rule out the possibility that you've been embezzling Father's personal funds, then there's only one possibility left, right? Aniki, we've been thinking that you might have found those 10 tons of gold bars.
Ridiculous. Such a thing never existed in the first place.
Then explain yourself. Was it embezzlement of Father's assets or Father's hidden gold? How could you have gathered so much funding if not by one of these methods?
Even I have many friends in the political and financial realms. I have earned their cooperation, nothing more. And on that matter, I have no responsibility to explain myself to you. You understand, don't you? There are some topics that ought not be spoken of.
If you insist on that point, that's all well and good for now. But Aniki, Dad doesn't have long. Nobody can ensure that he'll live to see this day next year. The inheritance process will begin at the instant of Dad's death. We'll arrange for lawyers and accountants who are impartial to all of us and have them inspect Dad's financial situation. At that time, if it comes to light that you've unjustly interfered with Father's money, you understand, right?
I don't have a clue what you're talking about. You're starting to make me feel as indignant as my wife was.
Of course, Father's gold is part of Father's fortune. We understand it's money you can't reveal openly, but the 4 siblings should have an equal right to it.
In other words, we're going to have your financial situation investigated as well as Dad's, to determine whether you're hoarding the gold or not. Isn't this a great opportunity? Right now, prove the existence of your so-called support from friends and acquaintances. That way we can sportingly apologize for foolishly doubting you. Right, Rosa? That's right. Kraus-Nissan, you're the one who's dodging the issue. If you were guiltless, you could just prove that you were in the right, but you aren't even trying to do so. However, Aniki, we still have to consider your position here. Give me just a moment here. Hold up. Need to hydrate just a little bit more. Alright. As Dad's representative, you're probably bearing a larger share of the burden than we are. We've been living terribly relaxed lives until now, so it wouldn't be fair for the rest of us to complain without taking your efforts into account.
Oh? It seems you cannot make up your mind whether to flatter me or slander me. Please get to the point.
Basically, randomly investigate and nitpicky aspects of Father's wealth seems like a pretty crude way to go about it. As you said, Kraus-Nissan, there may or may have been movements of money that are difficult to explain. I've come to consult with you today while fully aware of that point. Both sides stand to gain from talking about this now.
A consultation. Oh.
When the inheritance is divided, you'll be rewarded for your years of hard work taking care of Dad by an agreement that's generous in your favor. Don't misunderstand us, Nissan. We aren't saying that we'll abandon our rights, but when we make our claim for what we deserve, we might as well offer a generous understanding for your position. That's what we mean.
In other words, if you accept our conditions, then when the inheritance is divided, we'll leave the investigation of Father's financial situation to you, Kraus-Nissan.
All of the siblings from Ava downward suspected that Kraus was trying to steal their father's wealth. So letting Kraus report the state of that wealth was extremely contradictory and a huge concession. If, as they claimed, Kraus was actually embezzling money, Kraus would be able to hide that fact. Besides which, it'd be possible for him to control the distribution of the inheritance in a manner favorable to himself. Kraus, realizing that this sounded too good to be true, couldn't help but feel suspicious. He couldn't help but worry about what they'd ask for in exchange.
Oh. After mistrusting me completely, you now say that you're willing to restore your confidence in me as the eldest sibling? So what is it you want in return?
Just what we deserve as siblings. You aren't the kind of person who'd steal Dad's property, but you also aren't being financed by some patron. Considering all that, there's a certain explanation that satisfies the rest of us. Nissan, you found the 10 tons of gold, and used that as collateral to gather some funding. Yes, just like Father did in the past, right?
If that's the case, there won't be any funny business in Father's finances. You've always been a good son looking after Father. Why'd we mistrust a person like that?
You're being so roundabout I can barely understand you. Please speak in clearer and more practical terms.
Our first condition. Aniki, you must admit that you found Dad's gold.
Are you asking me to admit I possess gold that doesn't exist?
Our second condition. You'll acknowledge that each sibling has a right to a share of the gold. Hold up. Yeah, hold up. I missed part of it. Yeah, go back. There we go. Each sibling has a right to a share of the gold, and you'll pay out those shares.
How foolish. With that non-existent 10 billion yen of gold, that would be 5 billion yen per person. Are you telling me to pay a total of 15 billion yen? Ridiculous.
Keep listening till the end. We know that much money can't just pop up out of nowhere. We're not asking you to make an impossible deal. Of course, regarding the portion of the gold, we plan to reward you plenty for your hard work until now.
Our third condition. The portion of the gold to the one bearing the title of the successor to the Ushiromiya head family will be 50%. The remainder will be considered the fair share for the siblings and divided up. Of course, this also includes you, Kraus-Nissan. Of the 20 billion, 12.5 billion will go to Aniki. 2.5 billion will go to Eva-Nesan. 2.5 billion will go to me, and 2.5 will go to Rosa.
That division scheme makes me so grateful I could cry. So you're saying, for the sake of the gold that doesn't exist, I must pay you 7.5 billion yen.
What's wrong? Nissan, your share is 5 times the size of ours. These are such good terms, I'd be jumping for joy. Our fourth condition. The gold will be liquidated and distributed along with the inheritance at the time of Father's death. However, as a deposit, 10% of our portions are to be paid to us promptly. These payments must be made before March of next year.
What do you think, Kraus-Nissan? This is an ideal chance for you to restore the trust regarding your handling of Father's assets, ain't it? Of course, it might be impossible to get a whole 7.5 billion before Father dies. But it should be possible for you to manage a deposit of 750 million, right?
Paying 700 million in half a year might sound like a pain, but you should be able to manage it with all your friends in the political and business spheres. Normally, we'd hope to receive the 7.5 billion right now all at once, but out of concern for you, we'll show our sincerity by asking for only 10% of that for the time being. The remaining 90% can wait until the inheritance is distributed. See? Even you'd be capable of managing a mere 10% to show your sincerity.
So, you're trying to sell me the right to assess Father's financial situation for 750 million yen. How impressive. You all certainly have grown. To think that I'm now the one being offered deals.
Nissan, if you accept these terms, the rest of us siblings will leave the investigation of Father's assets to you. However, the results of that investigation will be subject to scrutiny. It's only natural, right? We'd be so sad if you managed to things so that our 7.5 billion shares shrank. We'll avoid complaining as a general rule. Just make sure you do it neat and tidy. As long as you don't try anything that's blatantly obvious, we've got no intention of stirring things up. We want our inheritance quickly, too. We don't want it to get all drawn out and left hanging.
If a complaint is made, who would carry out the follow-up investigation?
We don't mind if it's you. This is probably the first and last chance for our siblings to reach a consensus. I believe it won't come to that. Looks like even you can speak up now and then, Rosa. By this point, it's obvious that Kraus wasn't at all trusted as the oldest sibling, so there's no need to go into detail. The former tyrannical oldest brother had always abused his privileges and violated the other siblings' shares. It was in response to this that the other three, now adults, were finally teaming up and striking back for the first time.
Sorry, but there's more. Our fifth condition. This decision must take precedence over Father's will. Later on, we don't want some will to appear and make this decision completely irrelevant.
I see that you're very cautious. Then let me ask, if the gold really were found, what would you do?
Since you'll be making payments to us for what the gold's worth, the rest of us really don't care if we ever see the gold or not. You can think of our share as an advance payment.
It's good to have dreams, isn't it? You plan to turn this island into a resort, right? You might stumble upon the gold by chance during construction.
Ava let out a high-pitched laugh. Sorry, getting my words wixed here.
Kraus watched, but didn't even flinch.
Let me add a seventh condition before I accept. In the situation that any sibling other than myself finds the gold, they will immediately turn it over to me.
Yes, of course, we'll hold on to it for you.
It was a play on words. Of course, the others who were forcing Kraus to pay money for some non-existent gold wouldn't save Kraus his portion if they actually found it. From the beginning, this deal had been nothing more than a threat directed at Kraus. Regardless of the actual facts, it was still extremely likely that Kraus was embezzling his father's assets. When Kenzo faced death at last and had his inheritance distributed, some unpleasant facts would surely come to light. That could easily become fatal to Kraus. The others had spotted his weak point and were threatening their brother under the veil of compromise, trying to wring a huge sum of money out of him. However, they had forgotten one thing. They'd forgotten that their brother's brain moved so swiftly, at least when it came to cunning and guile, that they'd been forced to band together to combat him. While Ava couldn't stop smiling, sure of her victory, Kraus let out a gloating laugh to show how relaxed he was.
This all makes for such a touching story. My estrangement from you all has left a deep pain in my heart. If accepting these conditions means we siblings can become friends again, it would please me to no end. I'd be happy to agree to your deal. Rejoice, Rosa. We have reached an understanding.
Rosa's expression dimmed. It was never a good sign when her brother started talking like this. Ava also keenly picked up on this. That's why she was unable to wipe away a sense of unease, even though Kraus had obediently accepted the deal.
My, how obedient of you. It's not like you at all, Nissan.
What a cruel thing to say. Are you implying I have some ulterior motive? Of course I don't. I'm just the same as all of you.
Just the same as all of you. He seemed to emphasize just that one part. The color of Rudolph's face darkened. To him, it sounded as though Kraus was saying, I have a plan similar to yours. So Rudolph panicked. He rushed to bring this neatly resolved discussion to a conclusion. Then we're good. So, Aniki, would you mind signing here? This is a written contract summarizing the discussion we've just been having. There is one for each of us. Everyone will sign for the same contents. Rudolph took 4 written contracts out of his breast pocket that had the details of their deal written on them. The 7th condition you propose will, of course, be added right now. Don't worry about that. Aniki, need a pen? Rudolph took a fountain pen out of his breast pocket and offered it to Kraus. Kraus made as if to accept it, but then, with a small laugh, he drew back his hand without taking it and spoke. Appropriate, considering this is the game from which that sound originated. Or at least as far as I know it is.
Actually, in order to ensure that this agreement is properly executed, I'd like to propose an amendment on just one point.
As soon as Kraus said that single sentence, all of the siblings felt as though something ominous was creeping up their backs at the same time.
That won't do. We've already decided, haven't we? Just stay quiet and sign it.
Why are you such in a hurry, Ava? Of course I'll sign. I promise the share of the gold going to all of you will be 7.5 billion yen. I also promise that when Father's inheritance is distributed, I will cleanly and neatly liquidate it. However, there's one point that I simply must insist that you compromise on.
What are you talking about? What don't you like?
The part about promptly paying 10% of your share, 750 million yen. As you pointed out, my financial situation is far from prosperous. While I can guarantee that I'll collect on various future investments, I must admit that I'm quite poor at the present moment. In short, I have absolutely no money that I can move around right now. I am incompetent and my business sense is dull. Since I'm the loser you all claim me to be, I don't have the power to move 750 million yen in just half of a year.
That can't be true. Are you trying to deceive us with such a half-baked trick?
At the time of the division of the inheritance, I will liquidate everything at once. Remove the condition that I must pay you 10% in advance. That is the only condition under which I am willing to sign.
Kraus Nissan, that 10% is nothing more than a number to measure your sincerity, ain't it? All things being equal, you shouldn't have any room to negotiate at all. We're doing you a huge favor by offering to let things slide for just 10% in good faith money. Now that we've explained that, you rejecting our offer would seriously damage our trust and relationship, right?
Hideyoshi had a humble expression on his face and was rubbing his hands together, but his eyes weren't calm at all. Kraus had already seen through to the shadow in the depths of those eyes.
Why are you all in such a rush? Or could it be that you're afraid of something? Rosa, won't you tell me alone? Secretly so the rest of the siblings can't hear?
It's not as though I...
Quit it, Aniki. All we're asking is whether you're going to sign or not. Just forget about making any strange deals or other suspicious moves.
Oh. You say I have no room to negotiate. Are you trying to claim that I am in a weak position, which therefore puts us in an unequal relationship?
Shivers began to crawl up Rudolph's back. He began to feel himself getting overwhelmed by the height of his brother's completely unsurmountable wall and the long shadow that existed since they were children.
Shouldn't deals be made between those on even footings? From my perspective, this deal will help restore the long-lost trust of my younger siblings and deepen the love between us. It's an old problem that's been eating at me and one I would prefer to resolve as soon as possible. I would be overjoyed if we could resolve it today. However, it seems I'm not the only one who'd be quite glad to close this deal quickly. Am I wrong?
Kraus stared at each of his siblings. They avoided his gaze with animal-like instinct. Only Hideyoshi was slow in avoiding it, so he was caught by Kraus's gaze.
Hideyoshi-san, I hear your company's been doing extremely well lately. At a brisk pace it went public, and both its track record and its stock prices have soared. I am truly jealous.
We aren't here to talk about my husband.
However, it is unfortunate you have neglected your stockholders. It's even more unfortunate that you were unable to solidify your base when you became stock listed. Before you realized that some bad-natured colleagues of yours had bought up a huge share of your company's stock, right?
How could you know about that?
The same way you knew about me. If it's possible to collect evidence proving that no one would offer a loan to me, then it's possible for me to collect evidence on you. Is it really so unexpected as that?
Kraus grinned broadly. In contrast, Hideyoshi's face was rapidly turning pale. Hideyoshi's company was a restaurant chain management company that he'd started from nothing. Thanks to Hideyoshi's management efforts, the company had achieved success repeatedly, expanding its range, and a petition to make it a stock-listed company had recently succeeded. The greatest advantage of being in the stock holding system is that you can sell stock certificates and gain a large amount of financing.
That amount tends to be far greater than a business's normal profits, so this is an extremely effective way to gather massive funds to expand a business even further. However, in exchange for financing the company, the stockholders gain certain rights. They are given rights that allow them to observe and guide the company they've invested in, leading to profits even greater than their original investments. This right is guaranteed to the stockholders, and they sometimes use it to dismiss ineffectual management. The right allows them to keep an eye on management and prevent the money they've invested in the company from going to waste. However, if they use it forcibly, they can eject the former management and take over the company. After all, dismissing management and nominating new management are powers held by the general body of all shareholders. Give me a second, I need to hydrate here. Stretching would probably help too. Yeah, got a little cut in my throat there. Okay. And people who hold more stock to cast more votes. In other words, if some person or group holds a majority of the stock, they can freely chase out the old management and make the president anyone they'd like. If they want, it's also possible for them to make themselves president. Most companies take various defensive measures to stop malicious people from buying up their stock and threatening their position, like ensuring that lots of stock is bought by those close to them, such as company employees. However, Hideyoshi's company had only recently become stock listed, and he hadn't had time to strengthen those defensive measures. I don't have a hydrate redemption point because nobody can see me do it. Or maybe Hideyoshi was so engrossed in the management of his company that he couldn't properly understand the dangers of being stock listed. It's hard to say whether he should be viewed as a kind-hearted manager immersed in the work of management, or a foolish manager who had his feet swept out from under him. In other words, there existed some people who wouldn't let him get away with that naivety unscathed. They began repeatedly buying up stock in Hideyoshi's company, rapidly gaining such strength that they couldn't be ignored. Then they sent anonymous documents to the shareholders in an attempt to gain control of a majority. The documents read, "The current management continues to make pointless investments and is ignoring the needs of the stockholders. Let us force the current management to retire, cut the current wasted investments, and let this company be born again as one that gives more back to the stockholders." I don't like slurping my water, though. It's very difficult to make the actual state of a company's management known. The fruits of Hideyoshi's sleepless nights and constant concern for his company were cruelly distorted, and he lost the trust of his stockholders. Thanks to these efforts, the group had almost collected a majority of the company's stock. At that point, even Hideyoshi noticed and started to buy back the stock, but the stockholders realized that the company was undergoing an acquisition maneuver, and each demanded a ridiculous price for the shares that Hideyoshi was trying to buy back. They continually tortured Hideyoshi, who had no leeway in the negotiation of the price. One of the certainties of capitalism is that the price will rise when two parties vie for the same thing. And one of the certainties of democracy is that the majority controls everything. So in the end, whoever manages to buy up the most stock wins. Put another way, whoever has the most money wins. Unless Hideyoshi could obtain a large sum of money at this critical time, he could easily lose all he had built so far. Therefore, more than anything else, he wanted a lot of money right now. He couldn't wait for the division of Kenzo's inheritance, since no one knew when he would die.
And you, Rudolph, have been in quite a lot of trouble lately too, haven't you? You always hear people say it's terrifying overseas, but it seems it really is true. American trials are settled quite emotionally. They never hand down generous judgments to foreigners. Weren't you advised by your lawyer that making a settlement with the other party would be more economical in the long run?
What's this all about? Well, it's just some trouble from work. No big deal. Nothing you can't settle with money. Kyrie immediately guessed the meaning behind the subtle expression on Rudolph's face.
Her husband had gotten wrapped up in some kind of trouble without her knowledge and had been worrying about it over it alone.
That's right. In this world, anything can be settled with money. After all, it can even buy back the broken bonds between siblings. America's very fussy about the violation of rights. But with money, anything can be settled. Long live capitalism. Though rumor has it that the settlement money could be as high as several $1,000,000.
Rudolph had been building a large amount of wealth with a certain type of niche industry. However, a niche is a niche. It definitely wasn't a business exposed to the light of day. An American corporate giant was trying to accuse Rudolph's company of violating their rights. For various reasons, it was thought that victory for Rudolph in this trial would be extremely unlikely, and he was being forced into an all-out surrender. But even so, there was a way for this to be resolved with money. If he could just pay that money, it might still be painful, but he'd be able to pick himself back up. But if he didn't pay, he'd lose everything. Therefore, more than anything else, he wanted a lot of money right now.
Rosa, you're a good and noble little sister. You wouldn't even touch a dangerous money game. However, your soft-hearted nature was your ruin, wasn't it? I wouldn't think that one should agree to become a co-signer so lightly.
That's none of your business, Kraus-Nissan.
Rosa uncharacteristically laid bare her emotions and yelled. After all, no one was supposed to know that. As Kraus watched, he let slip a muffled laugh. Without exception, every one of them, more than anything else, wanted a lot of money right now. In other words, the situation had been reversed. After all, the person the younger siblings were threatening was the only one who had no urgent need for a large sum of money. The other three, however, wanted a lot of money quickly, no matter the cost. In other words, the longer it took to establish this deal, the better position Kraus would be in. Kraus was extremely sly. He had known of their Achilles heel from the beginning. Even so, he had not been certain. Therefore, he had hidden his knowledge until the very end, striking back only after analyzing their attitudes.
If it were possible, I would like nothing more than to raise some money for my adorable siblings in their time of need. But unfortunately, I have nothing on hand. If you know of any sponsors that might be able to raise a whole $750 million, I suggest you try there first.
Kraus's elated words were so obviously detached from what he actually felt. The other siblings could do nothing more than listen, grinding their teeth. If they could think of a sponsor that convenient, they wouldn't have kept up this charade. They had entered this huge battle specifically because they had exhausted all other options.
However, if you do insist on relying on your big brother, I wouldn't mind using my influence to help you find such a sponsor. Oh wait, I do believe you said that I have no influence. Well then, I'm afraid I won't be much help to you.
Kraus's low, gloating laugh began to fill the parlor. The younger siblings who had been driving the oldest brother into a corner until a moment ago could do nothing more than grimace and grind their teeth.
Ava! Don't make me laugh. As if I ever put myself in your debt. Don't make me laugh. Don't make me laugh! If we relied on you, how exactly would you help us?
I told you, didn't I? All I can do is find other sponsors for you. Of course, I will negotiate for the highest interest rate possible.
Damn you, he's taking advantage of us.
Honey, please calm down.
I am calm. I am extremely cool. You bastard. Kyrie grabbed her husband's hand, but that action made him feel even more pitiful, so Rudolph shook it off. Kraus laughed as though watching something highly amusing.
In times like these, it certainly would be nice to find Father's hidden gold. If you did, you could split it up to 2.5 billion yen portions right now. How sad, how sad. How very sad. How extremely, totally, truly, hopelessly sad. Tonight, let us all drink together. as we solve the riddle of Beatrice's epitaph and discover the location of Father's hidden gold. If we four friendly siblings work together, there is surely no puzzle we can't solve.
Quite an entertaining scheme. Well then, what are the conditions they've attached?
Well, whether or not Kraus-sama actually discovers the gold, he'll pay Eva-sama, Rudolph-sama, and Rosa-sama a total of 7.5 billion yen for their shares. However, 10% of that will be paid before March.
Kraus, you dunce. To think that he would have his feet swept out from under him by his younger siblings. How truly amusing. But it sounds as though they tripped when going in for the kill, yes?
Yes. Kraus-sama exposed the fact that Eva-sama and the younger siblings all have an urgent need to get money.
Is there any need to expose such obvious facts? That irresolute, incompetent man. What are they doing now?
That conversation has been put on hold for the time being. Now Beatrice-sama's epitaph is being discussed.
So they're trying to solve the riddle and find out where my gold is hidden.
Yes.
Kenzo set down his spectacles and snorted. Will the miracle be fulfilled first? Or will those fools expose the gold first? What a show this will be. At the very moment those fools solve my puzzle, I will suffer utter defeat. They can suck my corpse down to the last fragment of bone. The greed of fools can allow great magic to bring forth a miracle. And yet, if the fulfillment of the miracle comes first, if it comes first, Beatrice will be resurrected again. The smile I've been chasing half my life will be restored.
Hold on. That's... I need to do some adjustments on this voice here. Because I can tell right now if I do this too much, I'm going to hurt myself. Okay. Let's rework this a bit. Oh, you would do it right there. Okay.
Oh, Beatrice! Soon will come the sacred night where we shall bet on a miracle, and the game of demons shall begin. I will surely prove triumphant and survive. I'll let you have the lives of all those others.
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, she was supposed to be a scary witch that was keeping the kids out of the forest, so you shall see.
I don't need wealth or honor or assets or gold or anything. All I want is to see your smile one last time.
Kenzo choked, apparently in great pain. Kanon got closer and tried to pat his master's back, but Kenzo motioned for him to stop.
Do you know why I went to the trouble of exposing the hidden location of the gold in every place that everyone can see?
No.
It's because magical power is determined by risk. If the number of people who just try to discover Beatrice's gold is great, and the danger of them succeeding is great and well, then the power of magic will bring about a grand miracle if we succeed despite the odds. In other words, magic is a game. It's not the case that the one who performs the best becomes the victor. The victor performs the best because he has been granted magic. Do you see? It is similar to how the miracle of life can be granted only after winning the divine odds of several 100 million to 1. Is this a little difficult for you?
My apologies.
That's fine. It all comes down to this. I will give all that I have built up to the one who solves the mystery of Beatrice's epitaph. Wealth, honor, gold, and the inheritance of the Ushiromie family. Everything that I have established. My children certainly aren't the only ones with the right to attempt to solve this riddle. Anyone who solves the riddle will have the right to gain everything, even you.
Yes. However,
I couldn't possibly understand such a difficult riddle.
Of course. I made it difficult. But you must try to solve it as well. That will form the seed that summons the miracle of my magic. If everyone attempts it and everyone fails, that will be that. However, if the miracles come together and give birth to magical power, it will happen. Beatrice will revive. That is why you must attempt it too. Everyone must attempt it. And in so doing, they will give strength to my magic. Do you understand?
Yes, I will try. For a long while, Kinzo repeatedly muttered to himself, agitated and clutching his head. Ganon stayed where he was, alert and unmoving, until he was given the next order from his master. Kinzo eventually realized this. Very well. Leave me. There's a bag of sweets on the liquor cabinet. You can take some with you as reward. I'm fine. After all, I am furniture. So furniture doesn't eat sweets. Well, I suppose it stands to reason. In that case, leave me. Yes. Excuse me. Ganon bowed and left the study. As the door closed, a heavy locking noise sounded out. But it was not the sound of Ganon locking the door. It was the door locking automatically. No one could enter without Kinzo's permission, and once they left, they could not enter again. It was a mechanism that Kinzo, unable to trust his blood relatives, had created to seal himself up in his own study and isolate himself from the outside world. He was already unable to trust anyone excepting not the children who shared his blood, but those servants who called themselves furniture.
Nanjo-sama, how are you feeling? Genji-san. Oh, it's just that there's no place for me to be anymore.
With a bitter laugh, Nanjo turned to face the door to the parlor. That look was apparently enough to tell Genji what Nanjo wanted to say. For the most part, Genji also understood the family situation. It must have made him want to frown, knowing that right now in the lounge, the master he served was being discussed so disrespectfully. But it would have been very difficult to gather that from his indifferent expression.
Still, I don't understand. Why did Kenzo-san have something so provocative written, I wonder?
Nanjo looked at the portrait of Beatrice. No, he actually directed his gaze beneath the portrait at the plate with the epitaph.
I do not presume to understand the master's thoughts. However, I am sure he had a deep reason for doing so. Since long ago, when Kinzo-san played chess, he would always prepare his moves according to some far-reaching judgment. Yes, sometimes even to make moves I couldn't understand. For an average person like me, it was impossible to see through to whatever he was planning. Sometimes I wonder if this might be some kind of will in the master's eyes. Perhaps he wishes to hand over his wealth and title to the one who can understand it. So you're thinking that he may have wanted the four siblings to work together and solve the riddle? Before some outsider like myself solved it? Kinzo-san may speak of his children in insulting terms, but perhaps he also wants them to repair their relationship.
It certainly would be heartwarming if, as Nanjo had suggested, this epitaph had been made to repair the siblings' relationship. However, both Nanjo and Genji knew that nothing could be more impossible than this. They'd known Kinzo longer than anyone, and Kinzo trusted them more than his own relatives, but even they could not guess at his true motives.
The master always says that everyone has the right to solve the riddle even if they aren't a member of the family. What about you, Dr. Nanjo? Oh, no, it's a little too difficult of a puzzle for this senile old man. Actually, I once wrote this epitaph down on my notebook. Night after night I would try to solve it before going to sleep. But it really is hard. It looks like we might have some free time to relax and consider it before someone comes to get us. What do you say, Genji-san? I am nothing more than furniture in service to the master. Gold and assets are unnecessary to me. You're very modest. I imagine that's why Kinzo-san trusts you so much. If so, I am honored.
As Nanjo laughed lightly in response, he once again looked at the epitaph.
Behold the sweet fish river running through my beloved hometown. You who seek the Golden Land, follow its path downstream in search of the key.
The epitaph on the portrait called my beloved witch Beatrice goes as follows. Behold the sweet fish river running through my beloved hometown. You who seek the Golden Land, follow its path downstream in search of the key. As you travel down it, you will see a village. In that village, look for the shore the two will tell you of. There sleeps the key to the Golden Land. The one who obtains the key must then travel to the Golden Land in accordance with these rules. On the first twilight, offer the 6 chosen by the key as sacrifices. On the second twilight, those who remain shall tear apart the 2 who are close. On the third twilight, those who remain shall praise my noble name. On the fourth twilight, gouge the head and kill. On the fifth twilight, gouge the chest and kill. On the sixth twilight, gouge the stomach and kill. On the seventh twilight, gouge the knee and kill. On the 8th twilight, gouge the leg and kill. On the 9th twilight, the witch shall revive, and none shall be left alive. On the 10th twilight, at journey's end, you shall attain to the power of the Golden Land's treasures, once and for the last time. The witch shall praise the wise, and bestow 4 treasures. 1 shall be all the gold from the Golden Land. 1 shall be the resurrection of all the dead souls. 1 shall be the resurrection of the love that was lost. 1 shall be to put the witch to sleep for all time. Sleep peacefully, my beloved witch, Beatrice. And that right there is our second chapter break. So I want to thank you guys so much for being with me here tonight. I appreciate it. You mouthed the words of the final part while I read them. Nice. Nice. Yeah, so next time I play this, we'll be resuming on... there we go. This chapter here. Says it's saved. I'm going to save on file 2 just to be safe here. Okay. So that is taken care of. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I should be back on Sunday. I'll probably be streaming more Horizon Zero Dawn then. So be looking forward to that. Let me see if there's anyone online. I went to raid at the moment. Okay, we'll give this person a raid here. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being with me here tonight. This is Dr. Novelle signing out. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. We'll see you hopefully on Sunday. Have a good evening.